started because I know that you guys, I'm sure, have other places to be at 10:30. So I'm going to turn it right over to Amy Kurjanowicz, who is the Director of Counseling at George Mason High School.
Thank you for being here. As I said a few minutes ago, it was standing room only here on Friday, so you're going to have a lot of one-to-one questions answered for you. I brought a couple of my co-workers from George Mason from the counseling department. This is Nancy Goldman and Brad McAdam. And then some of you may have met Kelly Brown. She's our IB coordinator. She's here as well. So today, and actually what I'm going to show you up here are different kinds of diplomas in the state of Virginia. We're going to review them. I have a handout which is on its way, so you'll be able to have a hard copy of this before you leave today. So you can use it as your own guide at home. Okay, so within the state of Virginia, we have two types of diplomas. A student is required in order to graduate to get a Virginia diploma. The first diploma that we have is the standard diploma, and we're going to go over what everything on this means. This is a credit check sheet. It's not a legal document. It's something that we use just to keep track of what the kids, it's a good visual for the kids of what they've taken and what they still need to take in order to graduate with this diploma. Brad has also created something similar to this in Power School, so we do have an electronic guide as well. So a standard diploma in the state of Virginia requires 22 credits, that's a full year, 22 full year courses or credits, 6 verified credits, and I will go over what all of this means specifically. And your students are graduating in the class of 2018, if they're 19, sorry, if they're in 8th grade this year. Each one of these squares represents a semester. At George Mason, we're on a semester basis. So in order for a student to get 1 full credit in English in 9th grade, they take 2 semesters. That's a full year. They need 4 years of English to graduate, and that doesn't have anything to do with the level of the course. They need 4 years of English to graduate. They need 3 years of social studies, and everything that I'm showing you here is a minimum. They need a minimum of 3 years of social studies. The majority of our students go beyond the minimum. They need 1 in world studies, and actually, if your students are doing it this year, 8th grade World Civ, that will count for a high school credit. That will count for their first social studies credit in high school. They are required to take a U.S. government course and a U.S. history course. Again, these are minimums. We also have a World Civ 2, which the majority of our 9th graders take, and that will give them 4 years because they're required to have these other 2 to graduate specifically. They have to have at least 3 math courses at the level of Algebra 1 or above. Many of our students are now taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Some are taking geometry in 8th grade, which means if they're in geometry in 8th grade, that means they now have 2 high school math credits, algebra and geometry. If they're in pre-algebra, that does not count towards high school credit. So many of our students, again, are coming to George Mason having already earned at least 1 math credit. Science, they're required to have at least 3 years of science in at least 2 of the 4 disciplines, the biological, the chemical, the physical. Even though I said that, they're all taking physical science in 8th grade, that does not count for a high school credit. They're all required to have health and PE in 9th and 10th grade. Nancy's going to bring around what's up here so you'll have a copy. This foreign language is not required for a standard diploma, but 1 credit of career and tech ed is. They can use foreign language as electives. And for some of them, again, they're doing language in 8th grade, allowing them to get high school credit. This course is actually not typed correctly. We call it Economics and Personal Finance. That's a new course that's a requirement from the state for students to graduate, and we recommend they don't take that before their 10th grade year so they can benefit from the course a lot more. And I'm going to skip down here for a second to virtual course. The state of Virginia now says every student when they graduate must have at least 1 virtual or online course. Our Economics and Personal Finance class satisfies that requirement. So it's not an extra course, but it's just a requirement. Whether they do this in the traditional classroom or in our hybrid setting or online setting, both satisfy the virtual course requirement. And then they have to have electives. To make up their 22, they need at least 4 electives, and for a standard diploma, they must be sequential. Art 1 and Art 2, Theater 1, Theater 2, Computer Science, IB Computer Science, anything that's sequential, it is required for a Virginia diploma, standard Virginia diploma. And then up top, I also showed you it said verified credits. A verified credit means when a student takes a class and they've successfully passed the class, if there's an end of course test, which we call SOLs in Virginia, or Standards of Learning, and they pass that, that means they verified their credit in class, so they get a verified credit. They don't do their writing and reading for English until the junior year, May of the junior year. They are required to have 1 verified credit in social studies, 1 in math, 1 in science, and then 1 whatever their choice is. They take that SOL when they complete the course, or the end of the course. They take them in May. They don't in June, but they take them in May of the year they're taking the class. And not all courses have SOLs that go with them. So the SOLs for social studies, their opportunities are World Civ 1, World Civ 2, or U.S. History. For math, it would be Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2. For science, it'll be biology, geophysics, chemistry. Geophysics is actually called earth science. And the student choice, whatever other one they would like to take. Are there any questions?
So the student choice, it would be biology and chemistry?
It could, absolutely. We have students sit for any SOL. When they're in a class, if there's an SOL, even if they're not required here, we have them sit for the SOL, because the state thinks if they don't, then we, not making this up, they think that we think they're not going to do well on the SOL, and they don't want us to look bad. So we have to notify the state why a student may not sit for an SOL.
The world history they're taking right now is not, is it an SOL course?
It is, and they'll take the SOL in May.
So does that count towards their social studies?
Yes, it does, absolutely.
There's a title difference where the high school calls it World Civilization and we call it World History, but it's the same course.
It's exactly the
different
same.
names.
And the SOL is exactly the
Yes.
same. And they would do the same if they're in algebra this year, they'll sit for the SOL in algebra. If they're in geometry, they'll sit for the SOL in geometry. And there are other 8th grade SOLs that they'll sit for, but that doesn't go towards the high school verified credits.
So does that mean that all of the students who are currently in these high school credit classes while they're at MEH take the SOLs for the high school credit class and then they take an additional 8th grade SOL?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. If, as an example, for World Civ, when they take the SOL for World Civ, that's the only SOL they're going to take for World Civ.
Right, but the entire 8th grade is taking that class, right?
Correct.
But some of the things like math have some of the students taking pre-algebra, some are taking algebra 1, some are taking geometry. So that's something that's very differentiated.
Right.
If you then take the geometry SOL, do you also have to take the standard 8th grade math SOL? Or you've already checked the box because you did
You
one?
check the box on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the teacher might also have their own classroom test. That has nothing to do with the SOLs. Okay, so that was a standard diploma. The other diploma type that we have in the state of Virginia is the advanced studies diploma. And the advanced requires more than the standard. The advanced requires 26 credits instead of 22. It requires 9 verified credits instead of 6 verified credits. So this is a little bit higher, a little bit more for the students. Again, they're still required to have 4 years of English, but now social studies, they're required to have at least 4 years versus the 3 years. Again, this one is being satisfied in 8th grade. If a student is on this path, they generally take world studies in 9th, government in 10th, history in 11th, and then they take other history classes if they like history. If a student chooses not to do world studies in 9th grade, there still is a way for them to get an advanced studies diploma. They could take it, modern world history in their senior year, or they could go on to an IB course. So there are ways to do that. Math, they're required to have at least 4 years of math, at least the Algebra 1 level and above. And science now shifts up as well. Now they're required to have 4 years of science in at least 3 different disciplines: the biological, the chemical, and the physical. In the state of Virginia, in order to get the advanced, like I said, they have to have it in the 3 different disciplines. If a student is, in addition to pursuing the advanced diploma, are also pursuing an IB diploma, the state has agreed to waive the 3rd discipline. And the reason for that is because they want students to take higher level classes in areas of interest to them. So if a student is very, very interested in biology and really wants to dig deep into biology, then they probably would do biology in 9th grade, chemistry in 10th grade, IB higher level biology in 11th grade, and IB higher level biology in 12th grade. So that's only 2 disciplines. But that's the only time the state will waive the 3 discipline requirement.
Is it 4 disciplines? It's like 4?
It's 3 disciplines, 4 years with 3 different disciplines.
It's like 3.
3 up to 4 disciplines.
So what are the 4? 1, 2, 3.
You have to take 4 years of
So you're talking
science.
about just in the science?
Yes, just in science, right.
Yeah.
An advanced diploma requires a student to have foreign language, at least 3 years of the same language, or at least 2 years of 2 different languages. And we offer Mandarin, French, and Spanish at the high school. They're required to have PE in 10th grade and 9th grade. And this is health, PE, and family life education. In 10th grade, the first quarter of the 10th grade year, they also have, as part of their PE, it's driver education, the classroom portion. And then again, we have the economics and personal finance, which is required as the virtual that we talked about. And they have to have at least 1 year in fine arts or career in tech ed, and then at least 3 other electives. The verified credits also increase with the advanced diploma. Again, they're going to do the writing and the reading for English in May of their junior year. Now they need 2 social studies SOLs, and they need 2 math SOLs, 2 science SOLs, and 1 of their choice. Now remember, a lot of them are going to satisfy some of these by the end of their 8th grade year.
Can they, for the personal finance and economics counts as the virtual course, can that be taken 100% virtually so they can free up time for
Yes,
an elective?
we actually have a course called High C, Economics and Personal Finance. High C stands for Hybrid Learning. They can do it in our High C classroom as part of their school day, or they can do it on their own at home.
Can they do it in the summer?
Yes. Generally, we explain to students and families it's very difficult to do a full year in one summer. A semester is more reasonable to consider that. So let's say they started the summer before their sophomore year and want to do it, they could do a semester there. They could do the second semester the following year. Or they could do the second semester even in the classroom during their junior year, first semester, opposite first semester of an elective or something like that. So there are multiple ways to do all of this.
I have a question on the mechanics of the 2 track advanced versus standard.
Uh-huh.
You know, so does a student have to commit on the very beginning?
No. So what we suggest to our students is you should attempt to go for the advanced studies diploma. It is more rigorous, but you should attempt it. If you're not successful for whatever reason, you have something to fall back on with the standard diploma. But it would be very difficult if a student says in 9th grade, I want a standard diploma because I don't want to take any foreign language, I only want a standard diploma. And then they're a junior and they think, why don't I take a language? Why shouldn't I have taken a language? But it's too late. They can't satisfy the requirement. So if they start with an advanced and they're not successful in language or whatever and need to fall back, or they're not successful in social studies and they need to fall back, they can. And there's another diploma waiting for them. So we recommend they start. You don't sign up for a diploma type.
The 2 questions are just on the diploma. I'm assuming that now the Virginia universities are looking for an advanced diploma. I mean, is that why they're offering this? high school?
Well, for as long as I've been here, they've been offering this diploma. They have added other diplomas and taken them away, but I've never, but to answer your question, the schools do know which is a more rigorous curriculum. And they look at the student's transcript, and we're going to look at transcripts in a few minutes. I'm going to show you what George Mason High School transcript looks like, what colleges actually see. But they look at a student's transcript, and they look at the courses that they've taken, and they look at how successful or not successful they were in college. You'll also see there will be a place on the diploma, on the transcript that shows whether they received the standard or the advanced diploma.
And the second question is, you keep talking about the personal finance and economics being the virtual course. Do you have other virtual courses?
We do.
Or is that just?
No, we have multiple virtual courses.
Okay.
We do. But that is a course that they, this year, is it this year's class was required to take it or last year? Is it? Yeah, I think so too. The state added that as a new requirement, the economics and personal finance. So it added a little bit more to a student's plate because there was another requirement that they had to fulfill. Any other? Yes.
So, I've never been to graduation, but kids can graduate with a standard, an advanced, an IB diploma. What about kids who take some IB course, IB certificate?
Okay, we're going to go over that in a few
Okay.
minutes, but again, they have to have a Virginia diploma, and the Virginia diploma is on the standard or the advanced. The IB diploma, if they are pursuing an IB diploma, we help them all the way through, helping them, because some of the course titles are different for an IB course, but they satisfy some of the requirements for the diploma. So we make sure they satisfy everything. The IB diploma is the icing on the cake. If they only get an IB diploma, they have not graduated from the school in Virginia. They do not have a Virginia diploma.
Give us some rough ideas.
About how many go for the advanced. The majority of our students go for an advanced studies diploma. I don't have, I want to say like 78 or 80% are advanced. I do have it on our school profile, and that's on our website. It will tell you the exact percentage of last year's graduating class. It doesn't vary all that much from year to year. Anything else on this? Okay. All right, so there are, and I apologize, it's kind of messy looking, but there are different scenarios I wanted to show you on a transcript. Do you want me to turn the lights off, or can you turn them? Is that better? Yeah, okay. So every George Mason High School transcript looks like this at the top. Obviously, I've taken out names and specific information from students, because this is a true transcript for a student. In addition to the name, birthday, gender, the student ID and the state ID number, their address, it shows what grade they're in. Class up means the year they're graduating, and their phone number. It always has our identifying information from us as a school and as a district. And then this is where it will show what type of a diploma the student is getting. This student got a standard diploma. This enter date is the day they started at George Mason. It shows the counselor's name, our school number, and our district number. Okay, this is a non-ID student, a non-ID diploma student who got a standard diploma. It will show, based on what grade the student is in, the year they were in that grade, the school that they were at when they took the course. Notice this student was in the 8th grade, but it says George Mason High School. Yours will say 8th grade Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School. The reason for this is our student was, the 8th grade was with us at the high school at that time. It shows the course number, the course title, the grade the student got in the course. Store code means the semester of the course. So this course was taken during the first semester, and it shows how many credits the course is worth and how many credits a student got. These are credits attempted for the course. Remember I said every course is 1 full credit, and we have each semester is a half a credit because we have 2 semesters that make up a year. So the student attempted a half a credit, the student completed a half a credit, and weighted GPA, it tells you what the grade point average is for that student for that specific semester. Later on, you're going to see the cumulative grade point average. That is everything that's on the transcript. This is just based on that semester's work. So if you scroll down to here, you'll see that this student only took one high school credit course in 8th grade. Now in 9th grade, these are all the high school courses that they're taking, and every course they take counts towards graduation, and every course they take is on their transcript. Again, the grades, the credits, this student attempted 3.5, got 3.5, and the grade point average here for this semester is a 2.57. So at the end, again, it shows the cumulative grade point average showing everything on this screen. It also shows work in progress, which means this is the end of the junior year. These are the courses the student had selected to start their senior year. So if a student is applying for a scholarship or a college, they'll be able to see what courses the student signed up for. So when our students apply for college, they're not all, but most colleges, the deadline is, if they're applying early action or early decision, is before December, generally. Sometimes, even if they're applying regular decision, they're required to have it in before the end of their first semester of their senior year. So it will show the work in progress, so colleges will be able to see what they're signed up to take for the rest of their senior year. It also shows total credits attempted and credits earned. This student didn't pass everything. Notice this student got an F here. So the credits attempted and credits earned are not the same for the entire transcript. And it shows absences. At the bottom of our transcript, we have a code which tells us, I think I'll be able to show you better on the next one because there are no honors courses here or IB. It has our grading scale. And then in order for it to be an official transcript, it has to be signed by an official at the high school, and it has to have a raised seal on it. Okay, this is an example of a transcript for a student who started at George Mason, left George Mason or Falls Church City, went to an international school, and then returned to George Mason. I don't know if any of you are in the situation here, but this is what it would look like. Again, the identifying information on the top is the same. This student is pursuing an advanced diploma. This is another one of our counselors. The identifying information here is the same. Now notice, in 8th grade, this student took World Civ, Algebra 1, and Mandarin. So at the end of 8th grade, this student earned 3 high school credits. And that may be true for some of your students as well. Notice George Mason High School, but here, when the student left, the student went to an international school, and on the bottom, it will give the specific information about the international school. So if somebody's looking at the transcript and wants to learn more about the school that this student took courses at, they have information where to go to find out. Here, we don't have a course number, but we list the exact courses that they took with the course name that they had at the international school. We accept all grades and all credits from any accredited institution. We will never award, I shouldn't say never, we don't award grades and credits from another school. We accept what they come with. So if a student takes a class at another school and they don't come to us with a transcript like this from that school, we can't award them credit. It has to be awarded at the school that they took the courses at. Again, so this is the transfer. We were talking about hybrid learning and economics and personal finance, and you asked if we had other courses. Here's an example of a student who took a hybrid course, a high C class in government. It doesn't say it's high C here, but it's a high C class. And I know that because of the numbers and because of the way it's written. Can you just go just a little bit? Yep, that's perfect. So down here where it has distance learning, dual enrollment, AP for advanced placement, IB for international baccalaureate, should I have H for honors? see these courses here, this is an IB course, this is an AP course. If there's an AP or an IB course, we show it on the transcript. We also show honors courses on the transcript. This course happens to be an honors course and an IB course. All of our AP and our IB courses are weighted, and I'll explain what that means in a second. Our honors courses are not weighted, only our IB and our AP. So if you look down here at the grading scale, I should say, first of all, an A is an A. So if it's an A minus, an A, or an A plus, it's still worth the same as far as quality points go. I think an A plus probably looks better than an A minus, but it doesn't change the grade point average. So any student taking any course other than IB or AP, this is the way the quality points work. An A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, a C is worth 2 points, a D is worth 1 point, and an F is not worth any points. If you're taking an IB or an AP course, you add 1 more quality point to each. So now an A would be 5, a B would be 4, a C would be 3, a D would be 2, and an F still does not have any quality points. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, this is an IB certificate student, which now we call IB course student. That means that a student has taken IB classes, but is not pursuing the complete IB diploma. They're interested in IB courses probably because they're interested in that subject area and they want to study more in that subject area. There are no prerequisites to be in our IB program to take an IB course, to do an IB diploma. The only prerequisite would be that you have the course that you needed to be successful in the class that you're wanting to go into. So if you want to get into Spanish 2, and that's not IB, but if you wanted to go into Spanish 2, we certainly think it's a good idea that you have studied Spanish 1. And that's basically prerequisites. We do in our program studies book, which I will have some copies on Wednesday night if you're going to come to the information session on registering for classes for next year. They have some courses that have recommendations, but they're not required prerequisites. So. Okay, again, this student is going for an advanced diploma, again, an IB course student, which means they're taking many courses, they're taking one or multiple IB courses for certificate. I just wanted to point out on this one, this says student aid with a grade of N. If a student is in upper class and instead of taking a study hall, if they were going to choose a study hall, and they wanted to be working with a teacher to help a teacher in some way, we could assign them to that teacher during a certain block. They would have student aid on the transcript, and N means no grade intended. It has no bearing on a grade point average. It doesn't negatively or positively affect them. But if a student, let's say, wants to study journalism in college or whatever, and they were going to be able to have an open period, and they wanted to work with the journalism teacher, they could have that on their transcript, and then they could put something in their college essay showing how much they were interested in it, even in high school, and they gave up a free time to go help out a teacher. That's just an example. Here, this shows a student withdrew from a class. This student was in IB math standard level and was taking the class, and then for whatever reason needed to drop the class. They were not understanding, they didn't feel like they were being successful or whatnot. They withdrew the course, withdrew from the course. If a student withdraws at a certain time in the class, a W will appear on the transcript. It does not, again, affect their grade point average negatively or positively, but it does show colleges that a student was in a class and for whatever reason chose not to remain in that class. It doesn't happen if a student takes the course and withdraws early enough in the semester, then it's completely expunged from their transcript and nothing appears. It's the last 7 weeks, I believe, of the course for the semester. Once 7 weeks that are remaining, when we reach that point, that's when we have to put the W on the transcript. So up until that point, it can be expunged. The other thing I should mention, talking about expunging grades, is that any middle school course that your students are taking for high school credit, if you believe that you don't want that to appear on their transcript because you're not satisfied with the grade, for whatever reason, if you want the middle school, high school credit bearing classes expunged, you can do so. You need to write a letter to Mr. Bird, our principal, or an email saying you want this course expunged from the transcript, and we'll take it off. But then it will not go back on. I mean, you can't, it's either off or it's on.
As a result, you're required to retake it.
That's a good question, and that depends. If let's say it's Algebra 1, you want that off the transcript. Normally, the progression is to go into geometry and then Algebra 2. It does look a little odd on the transcript if you don't see Algebra 1. It really does look a little odd. But you don't have to have it on your transcript if you have enough math classes to satisfy your graduation requirement and enough SOLs. So there are a lot of factors that go into play. So my recommendation to you is if you think about having it expunged, is please talk to your child's counselor. I would not do it before you talk to your child's counselor, so they can review everything to make sure that it is okay to do that. Well, there used to be a deadline. The deadline has since changed. You have throughout high school. It used to be prior to the sophomore year. It has now changed. It's pretty much any time till graduation, pretty much. But also, some students apply for scholarships, for summer stuff, and other things while they're in high school. So you want to make sure the transcript reads how you want it to read. So if you want something off, I would talk to the counselor and make sure it's the right thing to do. This student took some IB classes. They're not all IB. With U.S. history and pre-calc with trade. So this is a student, IB course student. This also shows 5 out of 7 classes. This is a work in progress. If the student does sign up to study hall, that does not appear on the transcript. Study hall doesn't appear. Okay, this is an IB diploma candidate. Again, all the information is the same, advanced diploma, another counselor. Everything is the same. Listen, can you scroll a little bit?
I'm sorry, what was the thing about 5 out of 7 classes?
So the previous transcript that we were looking at, it only showed 5 classes, work in progress, 5 classes. A full day is 7 classes. That student had 2 study halls in their day, so it only showed that they were in 5 classes. Okay, this is an IB diploma candidate. Notice it's written in here under student comments. I just wrote that in, but it's typed. So if a student is an IB diploma candidate, it's typed on their transcript before it's sent to colleges. A student who's an IB diploma candidate does not learn whether they've successfully gotten the diploma until the beginning of July after they graduate. So they don't get that information. It's all around 4th of July time. I think it's July 5th it comes out. So that's why it says candidate. Even when they graduate in June from George Mason High School and they get that advanced or their standard diploma, we still don't know if they've been successful in their IB diploma. But they will be recognized as IB diploma candidates at graduation. And this student is an IB diploma candidate. We can tell by the IB courses. If you were here the other day, you learned that they need a minimum of 3 standard levels, 3 higher levels. They need a course called IBTOK, or Theory of Knowledge. This transcript also shows the SAT scores. If this student took ACT scores, they would also appear. The state of Virginia says that we're required to put this on the transcript if a student has taken them. However, when colleges look at this and look at this transcript, they don't consider these scores official. So the student has to request the scores be sent from the college board or ACT to those colleges. Now, I'm telling you all this, the kids are not going to college yet. We'll remind you of all this kind of stuff. But I just wanted you to see that it has to appear. There is a way to make it disappear from the transcript. And that is by sending an email to Mr. Bird, our principal, requesting it not be on there. because the state says it has to be on there, but the state also recognizes not everybody wants it on there. So that's the way to remove it. You can't remove one score and not another score. It's all or nothing. Yes?
I don't know if people still do this anymore, but do people take the SATs multiple times? And if
Yes.
so, is it are all?
They
Right.
actually, they do computerized, they take the highest.
They take the highest.
So if you had taken it twice, which seems reasonable, and you did really well in critical reading the first time, but you did much better on math the second time, so they would show different dates and just, or was
It's
it
not
all
on the
together?
transcript, it's one.
No, it's not.
They're doing both still?
Both the best.
Okay.
Both- Right, both
That's-
the best score. It's
Per
like
area or overall? Like,
Shows both dates, is what she
Shows
Yeah.
both dates.
Okay.
Sorry. Is that what you're saying? Like, it would only show one time, it would show reading once, it would show math once.
right, but so it could
That's
show,
fine.
like, if you did better in reading one time and better on
Right.
math another time, it would show your reading from one date
Yeah.
and your math from another. then your
Correct.
break.
Yes.
It-
I'm
it
sorry.
pulls the
I
best.
would say
That's
no to
nice.
that.
I think
Sorry.
we're all saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Oh, got it both ways.
Hmm.
And have I left anything off here, guys?
Ranking.
Transcripts?
But I think a parent from the other day had a good question about, like, if a student was taking Spanish in 8th grade
Uh-huh.
and then did fine in the class, but sort of just felt like she needed to maybe just take it again because didn't feel ready to go to Spanish 2 for whatever reason. We would just take, so they took Spanish 1 again in 9th grade. We would just take the highest grade from either one of those 2 years, but they would both appear in the transcript unless the student did better the second year and you chose as a parent to say, please expunge the first, the 8th grade year.
And the only way, remember, the only way to expunge a grade is if it was taken in middle school. So if they're in 10th grade and the same scenario happens, before going on to 11th grade to repeat the course, then both of them would remain on the transcript and the credit would be given to the higher grade. Yes.
Are you going to go over the weighted GPA and class rankings and?
Well, we did the GPA,
No, not a weighting.
the weighting, but I didn't talk about class rank.
You didn't do the.
Yeah, if you do an IB class, then it's an extra
IB
point.
and AP are weighted,
I'm sorry.
But not honors.
but not honors, even though it shows honors on it, it's not weighted.
And some schools might weight honors courses or give 1.5 to AP or IB score classes, but we apply that 1 point weight to the AP and IB score. So it does sometimes alter a student's GPA when they transfer from high school.
And then you did ask a good question, not about GPA, but about rank. We don't rank at George Mason. We do compute deciles. So in other words, if we did rank, a student who had the highest grade point average in the graduating class, they would be number 1 in the class. And the second person down would be number 2. We don't do that. We do deciles. So we will say a student falls within the first decile or the second decile.
So do you have you don't have a salutatorian and valedictorian?
We do not have a salutatorian. We have many valedictorians. And they have to have a certain grade point average when they graduate in order to be a valedictorian. We select our valedictory speakers for graduation based on if they have the potential to be a valedictory scholar, and also they actually have to give their speech in front of some people to be selected to speak at graduation. And we've had from 1 to 3 valedictory speakers. Any other questions? Yes.
So in the IB meeting, there was HL and SL. Is that just all IB on the transcript?
No, it will say HL or SL.
Oh, I see.
So Here is IB English, A1 Literature,
Oh, it's
11 HL.
Okay.
Here's IB Psych SL.
That's all the same weighting.
It's all the same weight, correct. Anything else?
How do you feel about that meeting? Can you tell us what that means?
Sure. Well, actually, Kelly here too. Kelly actually is doing another one of her sessions tomorrow if the weather is good, if you can be here. HL means higher level. It's always a 2-year course, and it has more seat hours than standard level. Standard level in IB world, like every standard level course to be 2-year. Some are still 1 year in the States. Some of ours are 2-year, and they have less of seat time requirement. So it does.
The assessments are slightly different. Higher level will have more rigorous assessments. They will cover a greater amount of content because they do have the longer time that they're in the classroom, whereas the standard level will still have rigorous assessments, but it's more appropriate to the lesser number of seat hours.
And we hope that you will be at George Mason this Wednesday night, because we are going to go over, I showed you what the requirements are for a diploma. We're going to go over the specific courses that are available to your students as 9th graders next year. And we're going to show you a PowerPoint that Alyssa will use with the 8th grade students before they register. We're going to show you that exact PowerPoint on Wednesday evening. And that's in the cafeteria.
I have a hypothetical question. If you expunge a record from that transcript, the average GPA actually goes down, right? Because you're taking something.
Well, it depends what they got in it. If they got a D, it might not go down. It might actually help it.
Okay.
It might actually help it.
Why would it D is still 1 point?
Yeah,
It will
but,
add to the total. Right?
but it's so minuscule in the scheme of things for every course the student has taken. And then if they do IB courses in 11th and 12th grade, those are weighted grades, that is even greater.
I guess it makes sense that when somebody goes into detail, look at that.
Right, right. And then I should also point out that with NYP coming, that will not be weighted as well. I said IB is weighted, but I have not been told that NYP is weighted, so
And
will not be weighted.
I was wondering if the meeting you're having on Wednesday is going to be recorded and put online.
It is, it is.
Can they only take IB classes in 11th and 12th grade?
Yes.
Can't take it as an elective. We might have, there's no room.
If IB won't allow it, and there is no room really, to be honest with you. But I was going to say, they're taking, if they are planning on taking IB courses, they're taking courses that will lead up to them taking IB courses where they're going to be successful. So an example might be somebody who's very interested in visual arts. In 9th and 10th grade, they may take Art 1, Art 2, and then in 11th grade, they could take IB Visual in 12th grade. As an example.
The NYP courses are open to grades 6 through 10, and the diploma program courses, which are what we've often referred to the county as IB, those are only open to 11 through 12, which is why we brought in
Well, that 10th grade, when that student was 10th grade, that person took 2 AP courses.
Mm-hmm.
Right, AP they
Gov
can
and
take.
AP Spanish.
AP they can take.
Is there a place online with all the courses that are available?
Yes, actually, if you go to the George Mason website and you go into the counseling tab, I can't say that it's most user-friendly, I apologize for that, but if you go into the counseling tab, there is something that says Program of Studies, and that book is not our most current. The most current will be up there very shortly if Mr. Knight has not put it up yet. But that lists every course that we offer at George Mason. It shows the grades level the student can be in to take that course. It also goes over the diplomas again. There's a lot of information in there. Absolutely. There it is.
I'm just interested in what electives, for example, like how much computer science is there for what to take.
And Wednesday night, I'm going to show you all the electives. Hopefully it'll make it a little bit easier than flipping through every single page. Liz, are you on our website or yours?
Yours.
So the new one's not up there?
No, it's not.
Okay. So some of the courses have changed. This book will not have computer science for ninth graders. The current one that I just completed has computer science for ninth graders, so there are some changes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, and let us know what we can do to help you, and we'll hopefully see you Wednesday night.